This is Real Estate Rookie episode 211.
Really putting your head down and figuring out what you're going to do and start doing it. And it's not going to be easy at first. Nothing's ever easy at first. We just got to dedicate time. And even if that means like, hey, I'm not in a position to buy right now, that's okay. Most people might not be. But if you start taking step 1 and step 2 and step 3, next thing you know is 2023 and now you have money saved up, then you can start putting things into motion, right? Like for us, I think the important thing is it didn't happen overnight, and success doesn't happen overnight. It took a lot of dedication, a lot of reading, a lot of just researching, and ultimately just lining the ducks up for what we wanted to accomplish.
My name is Ashley Kerr, and I'm here with my co-host, Tony Robinson.
And welcome to the Real Estate Rookie Podcast, where every week, twice a week, we bring you the inspiration, information, education, motivation you need to kickstart your real estate investing journey. And I usually like to start the show by highlighting some folks from our Real Estate Rookie community who have left some reviews for us on Apple and Spotify. So today's review comes from, actually, that's a pretty crazy username, 1727738AHEB. I have no idea what that means.
You're supposed to pronounce it.
Yeah, I wouldn't even know. But they said, great and informative and fun. Great podcast for beginners or seasoned pros discussing the ins and outs of real estate investing without the fluff. This duo is easy to listen to and they keep things fun and light, quickly becoming my favorite and has helped me jump in feet first. So for those of you that are listening, if you haven't yet, please do leave us an honest rating and review on whatever platform you're listening to. More reviews help us reach more people, and the goal here is to help as many people as we can. So we're definitely appreciate it. So with the reviews out of the way, Ashley, let's get into some boring banter. My favorite part of the show. Now, what's new in your neck of the woods?
Yeah, so I've got a couple projects in rehab right now. I just got a text last night from a contractor. It was actually from a garbage removal company that went into my hoarder house, and they sent 5 pictures. And I was like looking at the pictures, and the first picture was of a kitchen, and I was like, what is this? And I realized it was the same house. I didn't even recognize it because it had been the sink and the cabinets and the floor had been covered in so much stuff. I had no idea what the cabinets or the floor even looked like, that I never even imagined it without everything on it. And I just in shock. So I can't wait to actually go to the property, get some footy for some Instagram reels before and after. But it's just amazing. We haven't even done any rehab, and it's already went through this major transformation.
How much did it cost to dump everything? Do you know?
It was $3,900.
That's not bad.
No, I expected it to be at least over $5,000, but it was $3,900. Yeah. It's 1,500 square feet, I think the house is. It was just packed full with a path that went through the upstairs, tons of stuff. And then there was a garage, and then there was a little goat barn. And then just kind of some scrap and garbage scattered around the yard. But yeah, they went in and they brought their own dumpsters, everything, and hauled it all out.
Wow.
Yeah.
Well, hey, I'm excited to see the progress of the hoarder house. You got to keep us updated on the IG.
Yeah, I definitely will.
Yeah.
And what about you? What's new with your projects?
So we've been doing some hiring, but we unfortunately lost some folks that we recently hired. So I've hired 2 personal assistants since Memorial Day or early May, and we've lost them both. One we had to let go just because it wasn't quite the right fit. The replacement that we hired, she walked away from us because she felt that it wasn't the right fit. So now we're back to square one, trying to find another personal assistant. So if you're listening to this and you want to apply and you live somewhere near where I live, alphageekcapital.com/jobs. So we're looking for good people to help us kind of grow this business out. We're at the point where there's a lot of things that we just can't do anymore. And if I know I've always been bad, with my phones and my text messages, but right now the little number icons on my phone, 332, and my text message bubble says 289. And then I've got like another 300 unread emails. So my life is in shambles. I need some help. So if you're interested, feel free to reach out and apply.
Here's just a fair warning. When our producer Eric started, a year and a half ago on here, the first thing that he was told that Tony likes the room at 72 degrees and red Skittles only in his candy dish. So make sure you guys know what you're going to get to before you apply.
Yeah, I'm a bit of a diva behind scenes. I need my black shirts pressed a certain way. So.
And I know exactly when we get off of this and we're talking to Eric, he's going to tell me that I was wrong, that it was actually 68 degrees or whatever. He's going to know exactly what it was. Well, today we have a couple on the show. I feel like it's been a while since we did two guests at once. So we have Simon and Kristina on, and they are house hackers who actually turned their basement into a short-term rental.
And I love their story. Simon actually participated in the short-term rental boot camp that I led earlier this year, and from that boot camp, he actually went out, took action, and got that first deal done. And they talk a lot about their journey as a couple, and kind of how Simon was able to convince Chrissy that real estate investing was the right thing to do, and some of those compromises that they made. And they talk about how they were able to kind of navigate the strict short-term rental policies in Denver. But most of all, and this is the thing that kind of stood out to me, like they use a basement unit to kind of kickstart their business. And I was thinking like, man, why doesn't California have basements? And I was like literally Google searching on the side while we were talking to him.
It's earthquakes, right?
That's what I thought, but it's a common misconception. It's not because of the earthquakes.
Oh.
I guess it's because like on the East Coast and some of these other places, like it'll like the foundation, like the joist going into the foundation will freeze if they're not dug deep enough into the surface. So you have to dig deep like on the East Coast anyway. So they have to like build out that foundation, that basement to kind of hold up the joist for the house. In California, because it's so warm, like it doesn't freeze that low, so you don't have to dig deep. And apparently it's really expensive to build out a basement. So anyway, I learned something new today because of Simon and Chris.
Yeah, that's interesting because like there are houses around here that are on just concrete slabs, or they have crawl spaces and stuff. But yeah, so if you live on the East Coast, your house is better built if it has a basement, I guess.
Yeah, there you go. There you go.
Okay, well, yeah, so Chrissy and Simon did the boot camp that Tony hosted, and there's actually new boot camps coming out this fall if you guys want to join them, but you have to hurry because the deadline is August 31st. So make sure you go to biggerpockets.com/classes.
Simon and Chrissy, welcome to the Real Estate Rookie Podcast. We are super excited to have you both. Chrissy, maybe you can start us off. Tell us a little bit about both of your backgrounds and kind of what brought you guys here today.
Awesome. Well, like you said, my name is Chrissy. This is my partner, Simon. A little bit about us. We started our real estate investment journey back in, December 2021, which in reality, it started way before that with Simon being really interested in a part of the Bigger Pockets community. And so Simon and I had been together for a while, and he had been consistently telling me about Bigger Pockets and all the different real estate investing opportunities and ways to learn about real estate investing, and that he wanted to house hack. And I said, okay, what is that? And he told me all about house hacking and what that opportunity would look like. And my first and initial thought to that was, no way. I feel like how I grew up, when you envision buying and owning your first house, I wasn't expecting other people to be living with me. And it was not something that I was even remotely excited about. And so we talked about it and we kind of moved on. And then some time went by. We talked about it some more. Simon started sending me a lot of books, a lot of resources, and started sharing like what felt to me pie in the sky stories about how our life could change and how cool this experience would be if we were to start getting into the real estate space. So long story short, he got me on board with it all. And in the fall of 2021, we got connected to a Rockstar realtor who was in the short-term rental space. And through that, we found our first property in December 2021 and launched our first short-term rental in May 2022.
Yeah, well, first, congratulations to you both for getting that first property up and running. But I want to go back to something that you said, Chrissy. You said Simon was feeding you stories that you felt like were pie in the sky. I'm curious, why did you feel that those, like what those people were achieving was so out of reach for you guys?
So Simon and I started this journey while still working full time. So Simon works in sales. I do as well, sales and marketing. And for me, I was like, we have a full-time job. When are we going to be able to do this in our spare time? And he would so often send me Instagram stories or different people to follow about how they just started this journey in their spare time. And knowing Simon and I was like, we don't have a lot of spare time. What's this going to look like? So it just felt like something that was really out of reach for us. And slowly but surely, he started sending me information I would feel like in pieces. Like, step 1, let's learn about what this could be. Step 2, and honestly, I would probably say one of our most important steps was finding a realtor that was in this space and had done it themselves. So we had, like I kind of mentioned, a Rockstar realtor with Good Neighbor Realty here in the Denver metro area. And our realtor, she also had short-term rentals and was doing some real estate investing. And so when we started this conversation with her, as much as you want to believe and trust in your partner that these crazy ideas are real, hearing it from someone else who had real life tangible examples about how they were living it made it a lot more comfortable for me, I would say. And then when we started looking for homes, I felt like I had an okay vision for how this would work, but she really kind of helped me bring it to the next level when we were looking at properties. She was like, all you have to do is move a door frame, add this here, here's your lockout, here's your Airbnb space. And I was like, okay, like that doesn't sound as crazy, it sounds achievable. So I think step 1, building your team, so your realtor that can help you with your vision, I would say was a huge starting point for our success.
Well, Chrissy, that's great advice within the first 5 minutes of the episode right there.
Good.
Simon, I want to hear why you wanted to do real estate, kind of maybe your point of view and what it was like trying to get Chrissy to come on board and why you didn't just give up and be like, you know what, it's not for her. We're not going to do it.
Yeah, it was a process, and it didn't just happen overnight. It happened throughout several years. I mean, I remember a few months ago, just going through my notes on my phone in an airplane ride, and I found a note of first time I listened to Bigger Pockets, Set for Life, reading it about the book by Scott Trench, and wrote a note like, what is house hacking? Looking into house hacking. And this was back in 2018. So I've been a big fan of Bigger Pockets. I had the opportunity to work at Bigger Pockets and surround myself with the like-minded individuals. And I really knew that what I wanted to my life look like was just have the freedom, not only for myself, for Chrissy, but for the family that we are trying to build, right? And really looking at it not from a short-term horizon, but at a long-term horizon of what are the steps that we need to make right now in order to set us up for success over the next 5, 10, 15 years. So initially, we started living together about a year after we started dating, and my initial plan was to buy a short-term rental in Orlando. I'm from Orlando, so I had boots on the ground in Orlando, and learning everything that Avery Carl has taught us and you guys have taught us is really just managing long distance. And that was going to be my initial plan. Chrissy was not on board for that. She was anxious about managing a property from long distance. She was anxious about not being able to touch it, feeling it. So after further consideration, we decided to not go that route. And then I really had to sell her on the opportunity of like, okay, well, if we're not going to buy a house out of state, then this is what I want to do. I don't want to buy, and I kept telling her this. I'm like, we're not going to buy a home. We're going to start a business. We're not going to buy a home. We're not going to buy a forever home. We're going to start buying investment property in order to set us up for success and being able to really buy the house of our dreams in a few years. So it took a lot of patience. I sent her a lot of videos, a lot of books, which she may or may not have read. But I think it ultimately just came down to trust. And I remember one night after a couple drinks, setting out a 5-year plan of like, hey, if these are the steps that we can take right now, this is what our life can look like in 5 years from now. And I think that's really ultimately what brought her on board. It really just comes down to trust, and me being knowledgeable about the space, about what we want it to look like. And she really had 100% confidence in my ability to make it happen.
Simon, I think what you did there where you actually wrote out the 5-year plan and showed it to her, I think that helps so many people when they provide that visual as to like, okay, it's just not me talking, but putting it on paper so they can actually look at it. I think it makes it so much easier to digest because you can see the numbers and you can see what's happening. And we've had a bunch of guests that have come on and kind of showed that. And that's like with my husband when we were paying off debt. I'm like, I want to do this Dave Ramsey thing. I want to get rid of all of our debt. And I like made this whole Excel spreadsheet, just like, here's how we're going to do it. And he was like, okay, yeah, actually let's do it. After it took me so long to like get him on board with that. But I think that's great advice right there. So Chrissy, what was the one thing that made you like, okay, was it that night for you, that 5-year plan, visualizing it, or was it a multiple of things?
Yes, definitely the 5-year plan and seeing what that could look like was definitely helpful. But I also think it came with a set of compromises about what he really wanted to do and what I felt comfortable with. So when we first started talking about Florida, the control freak in me was like, absolutely not. I was like, I have to be able to manage this. Like, I can't envision us doing this across the country. And so I think that's where the first compromise came. And Simon said, okay, let's do it locally. And that was probably our first big step towards getting aligned on this journey and taking that next step. And it's kind of funny in hindsight because now that we're actually doing it, I feel a little bit silly about being so against doing it across the country because I'm like, oh, we got this now. But like I needed that ability to be able to like live in the moment and like check on things. And so I think that's where it comes with compromise and working with your partner to be like, okay, this is the vision. This is how you envision it. This is actually how I envision it. Where can we meet in the middle? And then we can get started. And I think deciding to do our first one locally was the big first step in that.
Chrissy, you mentioned a couple of things. I want to go back to one of them because like I was like feverishly scribbling as you were talking because it was like such a really profound thing that you said. But you said that like when I asked about the pie in the sky thing, you said that it just didn't seem achievable. But you started to just try, instead of focusing on like this big, huge task, you were just like, okay, what is the next step that is achievable? And I think for anyone that's trying to tackle any goal, like that is such a phenomenal framework to apply to that journey. It's like, yeah, if we're working our day jobs, the idea of retiring and, sipping pina coladas on the beach, that seems too far fetched. But the idea of reading that first book or going to that meetup or buying a ticket to that conference, those are things that I know I can do. And once I've done that thing and I feel comfortable with it, okay, what's the next step? Maybe after I go to that meetup, maybe now I go talk to that agent. And now after I talk to that agent, maybe I go talk to a lender. And it all kind of starts to snowball. So I think for so many people, I'm sure, Chrissy, we're in the exact same situation as you, where it felt unrealistic or it felt like too big of a journey to take. But if you just really boil it down to the next step that you feel most comfortable and confident in, that's how you continue to make progress. So I don't even know if you realized that you said something so like profound, but that was like an amazing, amazing thing.
No. And I mean, I think that's why like Simon and I actually make incredible partners in the sense that like Simon has the pie in the sky vision. He has the vision and the dream that I never had. I don't think I ever would have dreamed this for myself. And my first step is, okay, what's the action plan? What are we going to do? What's step one? I need structure. I need all the details. And he's like, well, we'll just figure it out. I'm like, that's not going to work for me. I need the details. And like you said, that for biting off as much as you can chew in the moment is probably would be my best advice, because that's what we did. Like when I thought big picture, I was like, no way. And then when I thought, okay, fine, I'll literally step one for me is like, fine, I'll start following real estate investors on Instagram. They can come up in my feed. I'll start to see what they're chatting about. I'll watch their stories and I will get comfortable with this. And then more and more, we went to a meetup, we started talking to other people, and they just were like, oh yeah, you got this. This is not that hard. And I was like, okay, yeah, we got this. And I started with those meetups. I will say I started seeing other people like us and how they were achieving it, which also made me feel more comfortable. And then, like you said, that's when the snowball effect happened, where we started talking to a realtor, we got lending and everything going, and then here we are.
So along those lines of those steps that you did, going to the meetups, looking at different resources, were there any other tools or things that you did that gave you that extra kind of confidence to like, okay, we are ready, like we can do this?
For me, I would say that's where I leaned on my partner. I know we talked about this earlier, how he'd give me a bunch of books. I did not read them. I was like, I don't have time for this. Basically, I told Simon earlier, I have to say, I started following Sarah's Instagram and I was like, okay, this is getting me on board. I like this. I like her. I like the vibe of this. This is all really going forward. And I just started consuming knowledge in places that I know I'd be receptive to. So like I would read blogs, I would Google things. I knew sitting down and reading like a big book about real estate investing probably wasn't going to be how I would feel the most connected to this. But Simon did that work. And that's where I think partnerships come into play. And so he had all of the details that I probably wasn't so sure about. And then I would say networking is huge. And I know that networking will probably take our business as we look at more opportunities going forward to the next level. But I will say that talking to people that are similar in age to you, similar experiences, similar places in their career, and learning how they're doing it, I would probably say was the biggest factor in beginning to have a vision for us achieving this.
Yeah, Chrissy, I want to give you a thank you for shouting out my wife Sarah. So if you guys aren't following her on Instagram, it's at Sarah Rad, and obviously she talks everything short-term rentals, but she's also a bit of a character. So you guys are going to get live.
It's a definite. You should follow. It's great. It's entertaining. Makes you feel awesome. I love it.
Yeah. She's not a character, Tony. She is the main character. Let's clear that up. Yeah.
That is she's the leading lady.
And Simon, what about you? Like, obviously, you had been learning about real estate. You had the opportunity to work with people at Bigger Pockets, but what were the things that like really helped you decide like, okay, I know I can analyze a deal. I know how I'm going to manage it. Things like that.
So, I mean, a couple of things. I mean, number one is you just got to start somewhere, right? I mean, a lot of people get paralysis by analysis. They just start looking at properties on Redfin, on Zillow, and they never start making progress. So I think the first thing is like dedicate some time, right? Dedicate your weekends, read some books, figure out a strategy. What are you going to do? But also figure out what works for you, right? I mean, for us, it was short-term rentals here in Denver. In other people in other markets, that strategy might not work. So you have to really figure out like, what do you want to do and what are the steps that you need to take? And something that was very valuable for us is we were part of the short-term rental boot camp that kicked off earlier this year, right? And it's one thing to watch videos and figure out how to analyze properties. Bigger Pockets has a lot of tools out there, but it's invaluable for someone to walk you through the actual steps of this is how you find a deal. These are the tools that you need to take. This is what you need to be watching out for. And this is like the red flags that you need to also be looking out for. So I think just like really putting your head down and figuring out what you're going to do and start doing it. And it's not going to be easy at first. Nothing's ever easy at first, but you just got to dedicate time. And even if that means like, hey, I'm not in a position to buy right now, that's okay. Most people might not be. But if you start taking step 1 and step 2 and step 3, next thing you know is 2023 and now you have money saved up, then you can start putting things into motion, right? Like for us, I think the important thing is it didn't happen overnight, and success doesn't happen overnight. It took a lot of dedication, a lot of reading, a lot of just researching, and ultimately just lining the ducks up for what we wanted to accomplish.
That's awesome, Simon. I've been fortunate enough to teach a couple of the boot camp classes, but not the short-term rental one. But Tony, you were the instructor for this one, right? I
was. And I'm always super happy to see when folks who attended the boot camp like actually go out and use that knowledge that we share, man. So love to hear it.
So after you guys have learned as much as you could, you've found your team, built your team, What about the other parts of managing a short-term rental? Did you go ahead and find those people, like a cleaner, a handyman, before you got your deal? Or did you close on the property, get it ready, and then you're like, oh, wait, we need these other people? Or maybe you guys are doing it yourself. What did that kind of look like?
Yeah. So, I mean, I can take this one. I think there's only so much reading, so much learning that you can do, but it just comes down to like, hey, let's make an offer. It got accepted the same day, which we were extremely lucky. We closed on the property on December 1st, but we actually didn't move in until February 1st because the sellers were doing a rent back. They were building a new home that was under construction that was delayed. So it gave us some time in between getting it started. And then once we got started, we found there was a lot more things going on with the house than we were aware of initially. And it took a lot of time. I mean, we moved in on February 1st. I was like, all right, Chrissy, March 1st, we're getting this thing up and started. Then it was April 1st, then it was May 1st, and finally by May 24th, we got it up. No, it was May 19th. We got it up on Airbnb. 30 minutes later, we got our first booking. So,
wow. Congratulations. That's amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah, thank you.
That first booking is like always the most memorable, right? And like it's almost like I always tell this, but it's almost like you're like a gambling feeling or something, right? It's like there's this high that comes in every time your phone chimes and that booking comes in. You see the booking amount. It's like it's unlike anything that I've experienced.
The first one was awesome, and even now, like when we still get it every day now, it's like it's even better because it's like, you know, like for me, I was like, I got Chrissy on board. I had her to believe on me. But I was like, I hope this works. You know, I was like, I hope like, you know, she's trusting me with all this. I hope I'm making the right decision. And then, you know, ultimately now, I mean, we got it listed in May, June, and July. We were almost 100% occupancy, and it's booked through October now. And it's just her basement downstairs, right? So, I mean, it's been a phenomenal journey, and we're just getting started. Going back to what you asked, Ashley, it was a journey. We, as Chrissy mentioned, we both work full-time jobs, and the last thing you want to do after working 8, 9, 10 hours in your W-2 is heading down to the basement and paint and build furniture and get things started. So we tried to do most of it ourselves, but there were a couple projects that we needed to outsource. So we found a really good painter who painted our entire thing. We had to install egress windows to make it official for legality reasons. And then we built a door separating our kitchen from the downstairs to really split the units. Everything else we did ourselves, and it was just a lot of building furniture, right? I think our go-to places was Target, her favorite, Home Goods, IKEA, and Hobby Lobby. Amazon.
Well, that's Tony's favorite thing to do is to build furniture. I know that from watching all the Instagram reels that are made of him building furniture. I want to ask real quick about, so you talked about putting in the egress windows. Can you just explain exactly what that is for anyone that doesn't know, and then how you found out that you actually needed that, and any other things that maybe weren't up to code or needed to be, and even the short-term rental laws in your area, where did you have to go to learn those things?
Yeah, so I'll take the regulations in Arvada, and then you could take the egress windows. So we did a lot of research about the short-term rental regulations in Denver. And the way that it works in Denver, in the city of Denver, you cannot have Airbnbs that are not your primary residence. So they must be owner-occupied. And we knew that our goal was not to just buy a property, live in it forever. We wanted to buy a property, put it on Airbnb, and then a year later move out of that property and do it all over again. So we learned by really just calling the city, relying on our realtor, that we found Arvada is a close city about 10 minutes west of Denver near the mountains, that you can have up to 3 non-owner occupied short-term rental properties. So we identified a couple of other cities. It was Arvada and Wheat Ridge, basically, that it came down to. And I was like, okay, this is where we're going to focus our search. That is a no-brainer. We're not going to buy properties in Denver. It must be in Arvada. So that's how we chose the location. And it just comes down to calling the city and having conversations with the public officials. BiggerPockets has a great content. You can do a lot of research, and a lot of people are constantly talking about the short-term rental market as well. But really just picking up the phone and calling. I think that's like, people can't be afraid to do that, right? So call the county, call the city, speak to people, learn the regulations, but also going back to what Chrissy said earlier is rely on a really good real estate agent. I think that's the number one thing that people, first-time home buyers, make a decision is a mistake that they might make is not going with the best agent that meets their needs. And for us, it was, we want to find someone that specializes in short-term rentals, that specializes in house hacks. And we found someone that not only specializes in these strategies, but she has gone through the process herself, and she has been successful, and she's on her third, maybe even fourth property by now, and she knows all the regulations. So we really relied on her for advice in regards to where we're going to pick what city we're going to be buying the property. And I'll let Chrissy talk on the egress windows.
Yeah. So as Simon mentioned, we Airbnb our basement. And so egress windows are windows in a basement that someone could exit. They could go out of. And so our Airbnb is a 3-bedroom Airbnb. And when we purchased the house, it had a single egress window downstairs, which I believe does meet Airbnb's requirements for the square footage and the space for having a single egress window. But for me, when I was looking at this space, I was coming at it at a point of experience. Like, if I was staying in a basement, would I want like what type of natural lighting could there be? Like, how could I feel the most safe and comfortable? I know I grew up in New Mexico where basements really aren't a thing. So the thought of staying in a basement on an Airbnb, I was like, does that like make me feel trapped downstairs? Like, how can we make this space feel the most accessible to people? And for me, I was like, we need these windows. And so we looked at our budget and what we had planned, and we decided that this would be a priority for us when building out our space, would be to add these windows. And so not only does it add value to our Airbnb, but it adds value to our overall property. When we go to resell this house, if that is something we do years down the road, having those egress windows down in those other bedrooms make them full bedrooms with Colorado regulations. And so that was also important to us. Like, how do we invest in the short term for our short-term rental, but also in our overall property?
Just one follow-up question, like, just for folks that aren't familiar with like egress windows, what does it cost to add an egress window to a basement unit?
Sure. Each window is about $4,000.
That's not too bad. Yeah, I mean, because like you literally have to like cut into the side of the home, right? Like if there was no egress there before, and
right. And we have a brick home, so they were going through brick down into and concrete cement to get in there. And the one thing that I will also say about a hidden plus that came out of our egress windows is Simon and I are both pretty chatty people. So when we met the people who were doing our egress windows, we were telling them what we were doing, and we were telling them about how we have these other projects, and they were like, oh yeah, like we could build a door frame for you guys. We're like, excellent. And I think that was kind of the snowball start of continuing to build our network when it came to people. So technically they were an egress window company, but they also had the skills to do other things. We liked them. We trusted their work. We thought they gave us a fair price when we were comparing it to other things. So we were like, absolutely. When you have time next Saturday afternoon, you can come build our door frame for us. And so I would also say too, kind of actually going back to your earlier question about building our network and choosing our cleaners and stuff. We started with one cleaner and it didn't quite work out, but we started talking and connecting to these cleaners, and we're able to keep another team member who's now become our lead cleaner. And so I think for us, it's been really helpful to just connect with the people that are supporting us with our business. Whenever we're here, we go down and we talk to them. We ask them how it's going. Like, are we supplying everything they need? Do they have any suggestions for us? Are they seeing things that we're not seeing? Because we don't always look at the property every time they turn it over. And we, this summer, went out of the country for a couple weeks, and we had 2 or 3 same-day turnovers while we were gone. And I was a nervous wreck. I was like, oh my gosh, same day turnovers. I'm like, not only am I not here to double check everything, but to also be in the same place to do it. And everything went seamlessly. And I think after the first one, because we trusted and we were so well connected to the people that were supporting us through this, that it was a pretty seamless process for us.
Yeah, I want to talk about how you two kind of split up the duties between you. But before we do, since you mentioned cleaners and kind of the important role that they play, Simon, maybe if you can walk us through like who is on your short-term rental team and how did you guys go about finding those folks and vetting them to make sure they'd be able to do a good job?
Yeah. So, I mean, we've gone through a few handymen. We actually haven't used them since launching our Airbnb, but I decided at first, I was like, I don't want to just pick one. I want to have multiple so we can have multiple resources when and if the time comes. I would say the only person in our team besides Chrissy and I right now is our cleaner. How did I find these people? I joined Facebook groups. I used Nextdoor and I just asked questions. And I was not afraid to just pick up the phone and call people. I mean, you know, I come from a long sales background. I've been in sales my entire career, and I'm not afraid of just picking up the phone and calling, whether it's a plumber, whether it's a handyman, whether it's a cleaner, and having them come to the house. We can interview them, walk us through their process, and just speaking with a lot of people and networking.
One quick thing to add with that, we also started with small projects. So when we found a handyman, we'd say, hey, can you do this one thing? And if that one thing went really well, we were like, okay, great. Here's the 32 other thousand things that we need done. So I think that kind of helped us feel confident in them. And I think it just like helped to build that partnership. Like, how do we, like, we take this in steps, like, let's take this in step with our partnerships as well.
Yeah, one follow up to that. I'm so glad you mentioned like starting with the small things. I was thinking about this when you were talking about the rehab and the egress company, but like the same thing happened to us in Joshua Tree. When we first found our rehab crew out there, the first thing they did for us was they built an outdoor pergola. And that's all we needed them for, right? They built a pergola in our backyard in front of our properties. And then we asked them, you know, we had like something broke at the property and our regular handyman wasn't available. And we're like, hey, would you mind, like, are you able to go and fix this? He's like, yeah, for sure. I can go fix it, whatever. He went and he knocked it out. And then I think something bigger ended up happening. Like we wanted to like replace some cabinets or something. We were like, hey, you know, can you replace cabinets? He's like, yeah, I can replace cabinets. And like we just like started progressively asking for bigger things. And we were like, well, is there anything that you can't do? And he was like, no, I was actually a home builder for 30 years, so I can pretty much do anything inside of a property. And you know, it's crazy to think now, like I would probably lead with that if I was him, you know, but right. He was just doing whatever we needed him to do. But my point is like you never know what people are capable of doing unless you ask and you kind of give them that opportunity to show and prove. So I'm glad you guys kind of found the benefit from that in your business as well.
Yeah. And it just comes down to just treating them like a human, you know, and asking questions, like feel them welcome, you know, they're on your team, like your success is depending on their work. So just being grateful for anyone that comes and helps us and then asking those questions. It's like, hey, what else can you help us with? Or if you can't do X, maybe you can connect us with someone that can do it. And then that's really how you're supposed to build your team.
I want to ask something about doing it in the basement. So doing a remodel in the basement. How was it? Was there already plumbing down there? Did you have to add in like a pump for the toilet? And then also, what about your laundry? I know in New York here, a lot of houses have basement. That's where a lot of people's laundry is actually located, in the basement. So did you guys have to relocate that or anything?
Yeah. So for us, the basement was already furnished. There's three... finished, not furnished. It's already finished. There's 3 bedrooms down there and 1 full bathroom. The laundry is a little bit of a problem, but I'll let Chrissy talk on this because she's very passionate about this subject.
So like Simon said, our basement was already finished. The only, I would say, besides the window, like big improvement was we didn't really have like a kitchenette down there. So we were building out like the refrigerator, the microwave, and we were like going through different things. And then we're like, okay, like if someone was to need to wash something, where would they go? The bathroom? We're like, that's weird. So our, like Simon said, our washer and dryer is downstairs, and it's like in a locked out room. And we were really lucky that we could put a little kitchenette up against that wall and run the pipe through the laundry room. And so we actually lock out our laundry room and don't let our guests use it. I jokingly say it's the laundry room of death because it's not finished. And so there's pipes and ceilings, and like from a safety and a liability standpoint, that wasn't just something I wasn't interested in doing. And so far it hasn't been a problem at all with our guests needing to use the laundry. And for us, it takes planning. And sometimes that planning can get frustrating because we've gone 2 or 3 weeks where we've been at full capacity. And usually it's, all right, they've checked out at 11, run downstairs and throw your laundry in. We're going to be flipping the sheets. For the way we're doing it and the minimal access to our washer and dryer, I will say, when we were first starting to read about how many sets of sheets we should have, how many sets of towels and stuff, I was reading like double was kind of around best practice. So that's how we started. And then knowing our constraints around the washer and dryer, we went ahead and bumped everything up to 3 sets, which has been really good for us. So that if we aren't able to finish everything before a new guest checks in, we can do that. But it really just comes down to capacity planning. Like if we know there's a 2-day gap, it's go time on the laundry front for us personally, as well as getting bedspreads, sheets, even more done. A couple times we've had to go to a laundromat, and we just tell ourselves like the cost of our time to spend 2 hours at a laundromat because you can put in 6 loads at a single time, is definitely an opportunity cost we're willing to be a part of for this Airbnb.
Yeah. And, I'll be honest. One of my favorite things about running the Airbnb is finding an excuse to not do laundry and just taking it to the laundromat, picking it back up. It's treating it like an operating expense.
Oh, Lordy, we disagree about that. I'm like, you can wait.
My only active short-term rental right now it's Airbnb arbitrage, and it's in an apartment complex, and they have like laundry rooms there, but they're very small washer and dryers, and you basically have to take over the whole laundry room to do all the sheets and bedding and towels and stuff. So my business partner on that short-term rental actually owns a laundromat around the corner. So our cleaner actually takes it to the laundromat, throws them all into things, cleans it while it's going in the wash. When she's done cleaning, goes back and throws it into the dryer, and then we'll come back and get everything and have the second set done for when somebody comes in. But it's definitely so much easier, I think, taking it to the laundromat and just using only 2 washers instead of having to use a whole bunch of them or doing multiple loads, I guess.
Absolutely. I will say when the time comes that we move probably out from the upstairs and decide to Airbnb the entire property versus just the basement, we'll probably have to think through a little bit more on the laundry front because it can be a lot. But I will say definitely recommend the multiple sets of things. I thought that at first. I was like, why do I need so many things? And now I'm like, oh, this is fantastic. And you never know when something might get ruined as well. And it's just so much easier to just move on and pull up your extras and do an Amazon order. And like, it's part of the business and it's okay. So it's definitely takes a little bit more navigating than we thought, but it's worth it.
So I want to ask about that. You mentioned that when you move out of the upstairs, if you were to Airbnb it, are you able to do that since it's not going to be your primary, or since it was your primary at one time, you can?
Yeah, so we can certainly do so because that's why we bought it in Arvada. In Arvada, you can have up to 3 non-primary short-term rentals. So that was a leading indicator as to why we're going to purchase property in Arvada and not the city of Denver. So that is our plan, to purchase a new home next spring.
And do it all over again.
Do it all over again.
Yay!
Learn from our mistakes. Learn how to budget a little bit better. But also, the opportunity from a revenue standpoint, it can essentially nearly double our revenue because it goes from being able to sleep a maximum of 6 to potentially 12 guests and open up the entire upstairs and downstairs.
And the revenue you'll get from your second
Exactly.
Airbnb house hack, right? So it's almost like a 1.5 or 2.5 increase, right? Because you're doubling it and some.
Yeah.
Well, we want to kind of go into the numbers of this property. We've talked a lot about what it is and what you've done with it. And so what was the purchase price of this? And you thought it was on the MLS, correct? And you used your agent to buy it. That was the deal source. Okay.
Yep, it was on the MLS. On a Saturday, we saw 4 properties we really liked too, and we ultimately went with this one. We bought it with a conventional loan of 5% down, and the home price was $575.
So you guys, it was only one Saturday. So you guys only looked at 4 properties, and out of those, oh, okay, all right. It was just one of the Saturdays that you guys were out shopping. You found this one.
Oh, I guess we did 2 or 3 Saturdays. So this was probably our 8th or 9th property that we saw before we made the decision for it. And for me, I was like really big on location. And so we obviously both had been living in Denver City for years, and I loved it. And so moving super far out to make sure that we were in a place that allowed us this flexibility with Airbnb wasn't something that I was super thrilled about. I was like, I want to stay in Denver. But now knowing how close we are and the experience of the area that we chose that we can give our guests as well as ourselves, like it's almost like I can't imagine living anywhere else.
Could you explain the conventional loan? Because usually when you hear conventional loan, you hear 20% down. And if you want 3.5% or 5% down, it's FHA. So can you explain how, where you found this at a bank? I know my sister got pre-approved for this loan too. And I was like, wait, you can do that? Only 5% down on a conventional? So maybe you can explain how you found that loan and where you got it from and the benefits of going with the conventional compared to the FHA.
Sure. So when we first decided that we were going to do this, we thought about our financing and how we were going to be able to tackle it. And we definitely wanted to, neither of us have been homeowners before. So we definitely wanted to leverage that first time home buyer opportunity here in Colorado. And so we kind of sat down and said, what would make the most sense for us? Like, should we do this property together? Should we take it in pieces? Should we do it separately? How can we begin thinking about this in the long term? And so when we decided to do this property, we decided that we were going to go at it together, but only put it in one of our names in order for us to qualify for that first time home buyer opportunity. And so that is how we tackled this one together and got started in this space. And it's been good for us in the sense that we thought about it from the standpoint is leverage the things that you have access to. We definitely are first time home buyers. We aren't two people that have a ton of cash. We've been saving really hard for these opportunities. And so that's where we said, how can we divide and conquer, but then also conquer together? And so that made that decision for me to use my first time home buyer opportunity on this property. And then the next one we go to will be where Simon uses his first time home buyer opportunity for us. And then eventually when we get married in October of 2023, then we will combine everything together. But I think at least when dividing and conquering and looking at our investments and our finances, I always just thought, of course we would do this together. We're partners, we're getting married, of course. And I think we kind of took a step back and said, what actually are all of our options? We're 100% not only committed to each other, but to building this together. Let's make sure that we leverage everything that we have access to, because we're young, we're starting from scratch, we're pretty green in all this. And so definitely doing our homework and also finding a lender that will lend to you is the first part, but B, that you trust and you build a relationship to. I feel like everything kind of goes back to building that relationship. This was the first time we've purchased a home, and we sat down with our lender and I said, I have a stack of questions. Half of them are probably dumb, but I'm just going to throw them out here about how this works and just be brave enough to ask them. And by the end of this, taking on a $575,000 mortgage didn't seem as scary as it did in the beginning when I was like, oh my God, no way. So I think it literally goes back down to that, like that relationship building. Like we still talk to our lender. He still checks in with us, gives us updates on our property, asks us about our next one. And he is definitely someone we would go back to for future properties. And he's someone who we valued his perspective and his opinions as well.
Christy, I'm so glad you mentioned that story about like asking all those questions to the lender, because a lot of times what drives fear is a lack of knowledge. And the fastest and easiest way to overcome that fear is to increase the amount of knowledge you have in that given subject. So for new investors, if you're not doing what Christy and Simon did, where you're sitting down with your agent and you're asking them all the questions, and even the ones you think that are dumb, or you're not sitting down with your lender and asking them the questions, your property manager, whoever it is, those are the things you need to do, especially at the beginning, to overcome some of that fear. Just a really quick side note, like when we were trying to get Sarah on board with some stuff we were doing, I literally picked up the phone and called my lender and said, here, just ask the questions that you're thinking of. That way you're not just hearing it from me. So it's a really good way to get your spouse on board too. Before we wrap up talking about the deal, I want to just kind of go into the cash flow numbers. So you guys have had this property for a couple of months now. Like what kind of revenue is your short-term rental unit bringing in for you guys on average?
Yeah, so we listed it on May 19th. June and July is like $4,500 each month. Wow. So $4,500 a month. That being said, June and July are the busiest seasons for it. But I mean, it's already really excited to see that we have bookings through October, through September, through October. So really excited to see how this plays out over the next few months as we head into the winter season.
I mean, and again, the goal of a house hack is to offset your mortgage, right? And I would assume at 575, 5% down, the Airbnb is probably covering all of your mortgage, or if not, the pretty darn close to it. So as a house hack, I would say this is really successful.
Yeah, I mean, the mortgage was a 30-year mortgage. Our mortgage is at 27, so we are cash flowing right around, $2,000 after paying the cleaner. That's really our biggest expense.
You're getting paid to live at home.
Yeah.
It's great.
Yeah.
We're going to go on to our rookie request line segment. This is where anyone can call in at 1-888-5-ROOKIE and leave us a voicemail, and we may play it on the show for a guest to hear. Today's question is, hi, I'm a rookie investor from New Jersey. My girlfriend and I are looking to buy a house hack soon. My question is, what should we be asking an agent so we can purchase the right home for us?
Hey, Drew Young. Thank you so much for your question, and congratulations on taking the first step. I think, what I'll say is, before asking your agent, is figuring out what you want to do, what strategy you want to pursue, and what works in New Jersey. And my second point would be to leverage the BiggerPockets agent finder. They have a large network of agents who specialize in working with investors. These agents are typically investors in their own markets. They understand what works, what doesn't. They understand the regulations. They understand the strategies. And they're really able to give you detailed information about what may work in New Jersey, because my assumption is going to be that what works for us here in Denver may not work in New Jersey, right? I'm sure the short-term rental regulations are different. Our long-term goals might be different than your long-term goals. So really just figuring out your why, but also finding an agent that really understands the market.
And the only thing that I would add to that from a much simpler level, like I said, Simon's the vision and I'm the how do we make this happen, is bring your realtor into your vision and ask the question as simple as when you're looking at properties of how would this work? That was like my favorite question to ask our realtor. Your realtor has probably seen thousands of properties. They will probably have a vision for a property where if you move this door or add that, here's your lockout, here's your house hack, here's your Airbnb. Starting from scratch, I didn't see it, but I had a realtor who did, and I asked the question, okay, I like this property, I like the neighborhood, I like the kitchen backsplash, how will this work? And leaning on them to answer that simple question might almost be one of your most important questions.
All right. So I'm going to take us now, guys, to our rookie exam. Thanks for answering that beautiful question from Ju Yun. I'm sure they really appreciate that. But are you guys ready for the rookie exam?
We hope so.
Yeah.
All right. So we'll go question by question. So you guys can take one. Simon, maybe you take the first one. Chris, you can take the second one. You guys can both maybe answer the last one together. So question number one, again, Simon, will point this at you. What's one actionable thing rookies should do after listening to this episode?
Create a biggerpockets account, set up your keyword alerts, and start networking with people. Don't be afraid to ask questions, and don't be afraid to engage with people who have already done what you're doing, and just get comfortable at being uncomfortable.
I think that's the first person to ever recommend on here to set up those keywords in the forums. And you know what? That is not talked about enough, because that was what I did too. Like anything with Buffalo, anything with seller financing, those are my like original keyword alerts that would come in. And yeah, it is so interesting. You'll get the ping of the email where like, okay, somebody's talking about this. You can go in and see what's going on, because there's so many forum posts in there. And this makes it like, you get to see what's happening as people are going through the forum conversation, because you're alerted about it. So that's an awesome tip.
Yeah. I mean, there's so much information, valuable information on biggerpockets. Start with the keyword alerts. And my favorite is setting up location keyword alerts, so that at least you have an understanding of the conversations that are being had about your market or the market that you're interested in purchasing a property in.
And Chrissy, what about you?
Probably very similar to Simon. I would say surround yourself with information that you know you will be receptive to. And so I think for me that, like I said, it was like today, if you're interested in this, like do something as simple as follow 5 people on Instagram who are doing it. And I know everything that you see on Instagram isn't real life, and you will build furniture together and you will cry, and it will be tough, but then you will build furniture together and have beautiful pictures for your Airbnb listing. So you'll get both. But I would say start to open your lens and see people doing it, and start to see the small things. And then, like I said, day by day, follow by follow, it will start to feel more achievable. So just baby steps. There's nothing wrong with baby steps.
Okay, the next question. What is one tool, software, app, or system in your business that you guys use?
Hospitable. We use Hospitable to manage guest communications, automations with when they're checking in, when they request an inquiry, when they arrive, when they check out. And it also sends automatic notifications to our cleaner. She has her calendar synced to our Airbnb calendar. So as soon as there's a booking, it automatically pops up on her calendar. And it just makes our life so much easier. You know, I've said this to my friends, and I'll say it before. For us, for this business, our house right now, the hard part is already done. You know, the hard part of finding a property, building it, building furniture, that is hard. For us now, it's just texting people through Airbnb, and Hospitable makes it so much easier for us, so that we don't constantly have to be looking at our phone when there's a new inquiry, when there's a new message, or communicating information with our cleaner.
Yeah, Hospitable is great.
100% agree. It's forget it and leave it. I mean, like I said, also getting comfortable with it. When Simon first told me that we were going to automate everything, but I was like, well, what if I need to talk to them? Like, what if there's a one-off situation and they need to hear from me? And he was like, no, that's too much work. And now we've kind of done the set it and forget it with Hospital, and it's been incredible. And of course, there's those couple of moments where they ask a specific question and they might get an automated response, and then you respond back to them. Nobody has ever said anything. They've been like, okay, sounds great. So 100% recommend it.
All right, last question for you both. Where do you plan on being in 5 years? And Chrissy, I want to start with you, because I know you were the one that was a little bit more hesitant to begin with. So I'm curious how that's changed over this journey that you've been on.
Sure. So in 5 years from now, I see Simon and I close to in our forever home with non-downstairs friends living with us, and multiple other properties. So our 5-year plan is definitely us being in a home on our own, and then keeping the current house we're in fully on Airbnb, and hopefully having at least 2 or 3 other properties. I don't know. We've talked about, like, could this be the future where this one day becomes our full-time jobs? Potentially. thankfully. But also Simon and I really like our careers. We like what we're doing work-wise, and balancing this, in addition to all of that, has been really exciting for us. We also might have a family by then, so we might have a totally different perspective on balancing all these different things. But for now, it's definitely in our own home, not being on Airbnb 5 years from now, and hopefully a couple properties in addition to it.
Yeah, that was a good answer. I mean, I think for me is having a lot of income producing properties, Airbnbs, and leveraging that money, leveraging that income to buy more passive investments. And I mean, for me, I just want to be financially free. I don't want to rely on my W-2 job. And I want to have multiple properties, especially now in our line of work, where remote working from home is going to be probably a forever thing. I see ourselves having properties all over the country, in Florida, possibly even in Colombia, my home country, and being able to work from wherever we want in our properties, so that they're not only a business, but that we're also leveraging them for our own personal use, and being able to retire from the W-2 and really managing the Airbnbs, managing our investments, and potentially getting into other investments.
Love that. I'm sure with the projection that you guys are on, the path you guys are on, you'll more than easily get there. So excited to have you guys back on one day, and you can tell us all about your Airbnbs in Colombia. So
I love it.
Before we wrap things up, I just want to give a quick shout out to this week's Rookie Rockstar. So if you'd like to get highlighted as a Rookie Rockstar, get active in the Bigger Pockets forums, Real Estate Rookie Facebook group, or slide into mine and Ashley's DMs. But this week's Rookie Rockstar is Scott Allaire from Ontario, Canada. And I like Scott's post. He posted this in a Real Estate Rookie Facebook group. And the first thing Scott said before he even told his story, he said, "I will become a millionaire one day. And for some reason, I can say it confidently, knowing there's a path to get me there. I'm sure anyone can if they can just get out of their comfort zone." So Scott, way to kind of set the bar high for people. But Scott said that he bought a property 5% down with a 5% down payment. It was one of the best decisions he made. He bought the property during COVID, early 2020. And he put about $22,000 into the property, refinanced a few months later, and pulled out $21,000. So he's only got $1,000 left in the deal. And since then, he's gained over 20% in equity, which is about 50 grand, which he said is more than he's ever even made at a job. So Scott, congratulations to you. Excited to see you one day hit that millionaire status.
That is so cool, Scott. And thanks for the little bit of advice and motivation too at the beginning for everyone listening. And congratulations on that deal. So Simon and Chrissy, where can everyone find out some more information about you guys and reach out to you?
We are both active on Instagram, on Bigger Pockets. You can find us on Instagram, I'm sure. Tony and Ashley, if you want to put our handles on the show notes, but also on Bigger Pockets. I'll put my link on there as well. Feel free to ask us any questions you have, whether or not you're looking at buying a short-term rental or any other different strategies. I mean, I think it really just comes down to communicating and learning from people that have already done it. And we would be more than happy to answer any of your questions, hop on a quick call, and share further details that you may have.
Well, thank you guys so much.
Thank you so much for having us. We were super excited, a little nervous to share our story because we don't see ourselves as experts by any means. So we're coming on this podcast truly as rookies, and we took step one. We did the first property. So hopefully the next time we talk to you guys, we might not be full-blown rookies anymore.
Well, Chrissy, within the first 5 minutes, you were already giving away great advice. So
Totally.
Don't doubt yourself.
And I just want to add one thing onto that, right? Like really quick before we wrap, like so many people who only have one deal, oftentimes sell themselves short in terms of how much knowledge they have towards the person that has 0 deals. So if someone who's never done an Airbnb or short-term rental or any kind of investment property before, if they came to you and said, "Tell me what you know about Airbnbs," in real estate investing, you will blow their minds. So don't sell yourself short. You guys, obviously maybe you don't have a massive portfolio, but you guys do have a lot of experience. You've gone through the process. You know what you're doing. So excited to see you guys keep growing.
I was just going to give you guys a shout out. We love the show. We listen to it all the time, and just keep doing what you're doing because it's helped us tremendously as we get started and continue to expand and grow into the business that that we have right now and what we hope to be in the near future.
Well, thank you so much. We really appreciate that. And I think having guests on who have just done one deal are some of our most important and valuable guests because it is so fresh in your mind as to how you got that deal and what you're doing right now. And I think that is tremendous value that sometimes when you have these experts on, they forget those little tiny details, those little things that actually made a huge impact on getting that first deal. So thank you guys so much for coming on and sharing your story with us.
Thank you for having us. This has been great, and hopefully we can inspire another couple like us. I know, like you said, it's like being able to listen to people that are like-minded, not only like-minded, but like you're like, oh, we're like them. Like we don't have enough money for a bunch of properties, but we can tackle this first one. And so I always think that's really, really helpful to just hear from people where you're like, okay, we're on a similar playing field.
Well, thank you everyone for listening to this week's Real Estate Rookie podcast. We will be back on Saturday with a Rookie Reply. I'm Ashley at Wealth from Rentals, and he's Tony at Tony J. Robinson. We'll see you guys next time.
Still